Good Monday morning, people. It's Eric here with you. It is the February the 12th of 2018. We're going to take a look at the week ahead and some stuff I'm watching for you guys. Per the usual, we're looking at the S&P 500 to begin with here. If you'll notice, I went ahead and added some levels so we can kind of keep an eye on going forward this week. I kind of mentioned there, I believe that you're kind of selling into strength. This is kind of one of those things where I don't want to blindly just buy the market thinking it's going to just rocket back higher, back up to this 3100 level or anything like that until I've seen some kind of proof that we have the bull's conviction behind us. So we bounced off this 200-day moving average. We talked about this a little bit last week. We kind of came in here, we tested intraday the moving average, found some buying support, and we have now since moved back higher. So now one of the levels that we're kind of watching is this 38.2, which is at 2663 right now. Not ironically, it is the day's high at the moment. The next level I'll be watching on the upside is the 618, which is at 2743 at the moment. I believe this is where we end up failing ultimately before we head back higher, or head back lower rather. So that's kind of where I picture us going. If I'm wrong on that and we decide to kind of continue higher, I did put some upside targets here for you. The first one being here at this 2965, and then we have another little shorter, less significant at 3014, and then ultimately at 3083. I don't think those are coming up anytime soon. I think that we're going to get to this level here before we find that people are ready to start looking to sell. And as we have noticed the other day, we have now a sell mode in the moving averages, and we have now taken out the previous swing low here, as well as this one. So like I said, I think the downside prevails until proven otherwise. Okay, so I have a few ideas here I wanted to share with you, just real quick, some trades that might be that we could look to set up here for this week, maybe hold them for a week or two. The first one is looking at shares of Pandora. This is going to be kind of a little lesson in time frames. I was going to kind of mention that, it depends on what your objective here is and how long you're planning on making this trade be on the table. So looking at this daily chart of Pandora, you'll notice here, and this is looking at 6 months in time here, but you'll notice here we had a moving average crossover, which gave us a buy signal. We're having good volume and to support that move down here, and now we have since pulled back, and it looks like we're trying to consolidate. Now if you take a look here, and let me switch my tools off for just a second. I was going to pull this up for you. This is that same move that we're talking about. So we got our buying signal on this one. Of course, this is a one hour chart, so we got it a lot sooner. We got our buy signal here. We were looking for a previous high to be taken out, and this one you can barely see it, but it is right there. And so once that happened, we were cued that we should buy the stock and get long with it, and that has actually worked out pretty well, going from about $4 to a little over $5 in a few days' time. We're now pulling back, and so this 618 right here is typically a very strong move, so we're looking at about a 460 for the support level. As you can see, we have tested that, and we have now come back above it. So these moving averages, while you got a sell signal and a confirmation sell signal, and we've taken out lows, and we have new lows that are lower than the previous ones before, as well as a series of lower highs to go along with that. This chart right here might tell you that you need to be selling this thing, but like I say, it just kind of depends. So if you're looking at this from a daily perspective, this is just the simple. This is a good looking correction for a move that's decided to start going for the bull side. So we had the crossover, took out the high right here. So now we are pulling back, and this is about actually where you'd be looking to buy this thing. So for a short-term trade in Pandora, I think you can get long the name here. I would actually prefer to use calls because it's kind of a volatile situation. I don't want to put a lot of money to work with Pandora here, so I would just kind of limit my risk and use some calls. I'm actually looking at the March 5s just as a little play to kind of see where it goes. They're going for about 35 cents right now, and that would give us an upside target of about 535. So just by buying those, we'll look for a pushback to the highs here at 540 and beyond by March the 16th. The next one I want to talk about is General Electric. It is a name that most people know. It has been a brutal year and ugly for those people who own it. This is a 1 year chart here, daily time frame. We have gone from $30 and now we're down to 15, so we've been pretty much chopped in half in a year's time. So if you own shares of GE and you have owned them for a long time, you are probably looking at some pretty rough losses at the moment. I kind of think that we're getting to a point now, though, where some of the institutional money will start coming into play with this thing. You saw here that we had the crossover, and we actually had some average or above average volume buying the name, but it did not hold as the sellers came storming in here and pushed us back down. So I kind of think we're getting, though, to this volume here. Gives me a feeling that we're going to start reaching a capitulation point here soon. And I wanted to show you this longer term weekly chart here of GE. So this is the reason I think we're probably getting close to a point where we can kind of look to buy this name. You know, the shares rallied, and this over here is our 2009 lows, the recession lows. This is the highs that's been made since then, which was back in October of 16, it looks like there. So this on a weekly basis here. Now, you can always see my time frames down here at the bottom of the chart. But on a weekly basis, we are now testing this 618, $16 call it. So I think that we're kind of getting at a point now that this is going to probably bounce around a little bit in this little area that it's came into before finding some support. One thing I wanted to mention the other day is that if you're having trouble with some of these levels, as far as you know, identifying some support levels, kind of look back at the chart. I mean, you see over here in this area that this was obviously a significant price area because shares were able to stabilize and eventually bounce from this level again here, and you can also see it over here to a lesser degree on this left hand side here. So the fact that this level has now been a factor for several times, and like I said, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 different points here in this chart where the stock has found support and used this level as significant for moving forward. I kind of think that it's going to have the same thing happen over here. So like I say, just if you need help with some of these levels, kind of look back at the prices that the chart has followed so far, and just the same thing going the other way. I mean, you see up here that this was a level that was significant in terms of a resistance, and then once we ultimately cleared through it, we tested it again as a support. So now, and it tested here, which looks like an intraday dip, and then also it kind of paused here for a second, but the sellers were so strong behind it, it didn't have time to really do much there. So like I say, I think that it's kind of getting to a point, this is one of those that you definitely want to scale into. You're not throwing everything at it at one time. I kind of want to come in here with maybe like a 25% of my position kind of situation, see if it works, let it play out for a few days, see if the stock does stabilize down here at these levels, because if it does not, we do have a lot of air underneath us to going down here to say $10, $11, $12, which I don't want to hold for a $4 correction from 16 or 15 down to 10 or 8, 9, 10, whatever it is there. So this is one of those that you want to define your risk pretty tightly. I would say looking underneath this $14 level, this low that was set last week, would be a fair shot or a fair spot to put your stop loss. But just keep a close eye on it. And then looking a little bit shorter term here, I did want to point out that you do have a buy signal now triggered on the date or on the 15-minute chart. We got the buy signal here with the moving averages. We have taken out this low, so I do expect it will kind of consolidate somewhere in this where the 618 would be at, and we can find that real quick if you want to see what it looks like here. So now look, this is just a day-to-day thing, so this is a very, very short-term swing here. So we're looking at 1437 there, or 67, I'm sorry, for the 618. I don't necessarily think that's what we end up seeing, but I think that that's a possibility for this downward correction before extending on up to the upside. And if you look a little bit further out, you might be able to see it a little bit better. Yeah, so here we go. Again, we got the buy signal now with the moving averages. We are now waiting for a takeout of this high to get a confirmation that that's what's going on here. You kind of can see a small one, and if you want to play it as a very short term, you can say, hey, look, there's a swing high right here or right here, and we have now taken that out, which you could justify, but at the same time, it depends on how much risk you're willing to put into it. So if you think it's going to be, you know, if you get some conviction that people are going to come in here and start buying shares of General Electric, then definitely go ahead and hop in there. But like I say, if you're looking at it from a longer term perspective as an investment that you might kind of want to start accumulating for for a few years out down the road, thinking that GE will eventually become a better, holding to have there. I think that this is a good time to start looking at buying shares of GE. And I am already long some of the calls further out. I think I bought out the September expiration at the 16 or 17 strike price, and I think I'll probably look to kind of supplement that with some actual shares, just to kind of see if this is a good time to be buying shares of GE. I also wanted to show you one other one here. This is one I saw that popped up on my scan this morning, with shares of Micron. They've kind of benefited from the demand in flash and memory and phones and tablets and all this kind of stuff, so they're well positioned in that sense, and so it's been a great company to own going back for quite a while here. This is just a 1 year chart, and you can see that even a year ago we were at just over 24, 23 bucks, and we have since gone up to almost 50, so it's pretty much doubled in a year's time, which is a pretty good return actually, especially considering all the volatility you've seen with some of the other technology names and stuff like that. Again, this is one of those that if you're struggling here to kind of see some levels here, you kind of notice how this was kind of a zone here below us that's actually supported us before. So since we have now dipped back into this, we found support here initially, and so I think that if so here, I'll go ahead and show you. So this was a support zone before, so now we're in this zone again. And so far we're starting to rally, so this thing looks like it wants to rebound out of here. It's up about 3.5% at the moment, I believe. Last time I saw, I think it was 3.1. So I'm not necessarily trigger happy on this one, and we can pull it up here to see it just real quick. Yeah, we're up about 3.4% at the moment. So that's a pretty solid move, and not necessarily one that you want to go jumping into face first on the day you're up 3.5%. But I do think that this one might end up continuing higher, and that we might be looking at a nice little buy zone here for shares of Micron. Alright, and finally, the one thing I wanted to mention here was I want to look at some of the commodities, gold and oil. Gold has been a good thing to own in previous lifetimes, but right now it's not necessarily the best one to work. I was kind of thinking about some of those commercials you used to see on TV with the Lear Capital and Roswell Gold, or whatever all those different companies were, buy gold for your IRA and all this kind of stuff. If you'll notice, or if you kind of not paying attention, or if you are paying attention rather, you saw a lot of those commercials several years ago, where that was actually when we were up here. So that's when they were trying to sell you gold for your IRA, which is, if you play it as a contrarian, was being an indicator that you probably should be selling along with them. So kind of ask yourself, well, if it's such a great investment, why are you selling it? That's kind of the way you need to think about some of these things, because people are out here to get what they can get, so kind of keep an eye on that kind of stuff. But now we have seen, or I myself anyways, has not seen those commercials with the same frequency or vigor that they used to be given into. So that makes me feel like that they have been accumulating shares or physical gold as we've been bouncing around in these little depressed levels. We actually got this is called the Golden Cross. So the 50-day actually crossed above the 200-day simple moving average. Historically, that's one of those, it's a positive indicator for longer term people. I'm sorry, this is a weekly. I'm sorry, the 50-week has crossed above the 200-week. So this is still again, it's still kind of a positive. That's kind of a positive signal for future pricing. So I also notice here that the 5 and 13 is now in a buy mode as well. We have set a series of higher highs. So we've got one here, one here, one here, and we also have some higher lows. Got one actually as far back as here, 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 and here. The only thing that's kind of troubling is that we have yet to take out this swing high here, so I'm kind of looking for that to be the next major resistance area, and that's about $1.30 or $130 on shares of GLD, which is the largest gold tracking fund on the planet. So I think that on this weekly basis here, you can actually be looking to buy shares of GLD, or the ETF that actually owns gold bullion in a vault somewhere that backs up the price of this ETF. So it's not like you're just buying paper. But I do think you can kind of start looking to be in this one. I don't think that gold is returning up to these levels anytime soon, but I do think that the bias is to the upside. And if risk does start really starting to pop back up in the markets and people start freaking out, rightly or wrongly, they start buying shares of gold and they buy U.S. bonds. So, given some political factors and some newfound things as far as commodities. I don't think that gold is as significant as it used to be, and I definitely don't think that U.S. bonds are as safe as they used to be. We just don't have a great track record with spending money, so I don't know why I would be willing to loan the government money for extended amounts of time, based on what they've been doing with it here recently. So I think that, again, you got the buy signal here, you got a new high, so I think this is one you can kind of step into. I would kind of be walking my stop loss up with it as it goes up, just because that if it does fall apart, you don't want to be caught in behind that. But at the same time, I think that it's safe to put a little bit of money in the gold right now. So the last one here I want to take a look at is and this is kind of a wonky way to track oil, but it's the only fund that I can find here on Fidelity that works okay. Is USO. It tracks crude oil, so in particular it does WTI, so not the Brent crude. We did get a buy signal here on this 15-minute chart. This is one of those that it's so volatile because of headlines, and a stockpile will come out and it'll be a little bit above or below average, and it'll really make the name move. So we do have the buy signal here, and I think that that's one of those that you could step into. But if you're wanting to do a very, very short-term trade, you could put a stop loss underneath this low. To the upside, that's kind of one of those that, let's see here, let me pull out to a daily chart. Okay, yeah, so actually, the more I think about this, the less I can stand behind this, because now we have violated our 50-day moving average. We're starting to see this volume pick up down here at the bottom. I don't know if it's going to actually fall out of bed, just because the demand for oil is pretty robust, and it's pretty much not going away. But that being said, it's obviously not impossible for us to fall back down. So you could look at a little small speculative long position, just expecting oil prices to continue moving higher. But also, like I say, I would definitely have a stop loss, very tight stop loss set up under this low here at 1160, or say 11.5. That would kind of give you a little bit of wiggle room. And if you got a little bit more risk tolerance, then you might want to go underneath, say, like this low at like $11. Beyond that, though, I don't know if it's one of these. This is not something you want to buy and hold forever, because of the nature of the product. USO, the way it does things, is not necessarily conducive to a long-term holding. So I would be careful in that one. Okay, so like I say, those are some ideas that I'm looking at for today. I think that you can kind of step into some of these names. Pandora is looking pretty interesting from a short-term perspective. Like I say, I'm buying the March 5 calls, paying about 35 cents for those. So I'm going to try to get a little bit better deal intraday here. I am looking at shares of GE for a longer-term play, so we could look at options on that one as well by going out to a little bit later expiration. Like I said, I think I own some September calls already. And then finally, the Micron, like I say, I would be kind of looking for a pullback in that one, just because we're up 3.5% today. But if you do see a little bit of weakness down back to the 40 level or so, then I think you can step into shares of Micron for a play to the upside. All right, guys, I'll have a little bit more of an update for you here in just a little bit. I'm going to look over some of my charts and kind of see what's going on. Slept in a little bit today, so still getting my coffee going here and stuff. But like I say, looking for another video here in just a little bit. We'll kind of talk about some other ideas happening in the market. All right, take care. Bye-bye.